Alright, Matsuri, what's up? What's up? Yeah, I need you to hold my hands real quick. You know what I'm saying? I'm about to activate that W Riz. Let's do this shit together. Okay. If you say so. If you say so.
On the bus. Psych!
Oh shit. I think we about to get cooked. I ain't gonna lie. We about to get cooked right here. I ain't gonna lie.
Psych! That's the wrong number!
So with the release of Boruto TBV chapter 20, I have to say this is without a doubt the best chapter of the manga so far. My name is Fruit, and on this channel we're going to be taking a look at Boruto TBV chapter 20 titled Because of Love, and I have to say this is an amazing chapter. This is like probably the best chapter I've read in a long time, and it's so crazy how every 10th chapter of the manga something crazy happens to the point where it is absolutely mind-blowing, and it just changes the trajectory of the story moving forward. And that's why in today's video, if you haven't been reading the chapter, which I mean obviously everyone has been reading, I'm just going to be deep diving into this chapter, and we're going to be giving our thoughts on what we think about this chapter. And I'm not gonna lie, already I could just end the video and say this shit is peak. But with that said, I'm gonna get straight to it. Definitely hit that subscribe button, definitely hit that like button. It helps out a lot. We are this close to 100 subscribers. I'm trying to push through. I'm trying to make a channel here, and we're trying to make the best content that we can make right here. So without further ado, let's get straight to it. What are we going to be eating from this chapter? Alright, so the chapter starts off from where we left off, where essentially Konohamaru was getting cooked. If you remember from the last chapter, which is chapter 19, we saw Matsuri having this standoff with Konohamaru, where Konohamaru was essentially about to get cooked. Obviously, Matsuri has the wood style, and with this wood style, she's able to bind Konohamaru into a position where he is pretty much defenseless and he can't do anything. But just when we think that things are going for the worst when it comes to Konohamaru, you know, Matsuri's telling Konohamaru about, hey, you know, I really don't like you because you are a danger to me. The fact that I keep thinking about you and how, you know, every time I'm around you, my heart is racing and all that. I feel like you are a threat to me and I need to devour you by all means. And this is a very interesting plot point here because obviously this is something we've known, and every chapter we seem to learn something new about the Shinji clones, which is something I'll talk about, very interesting about Jura, right, at the end of this standoff. But basically with this standoff here, what I liked about this standoff is how we are continuing to learn just exactly what Jura's always been saying. Jura has always talked about the fact that with the Shinji clones, they are a form of being that should not reciprocate life through love. They don't believe in love or affection or caring for people because people like Jura think and they believe that this is what brings about the weaknesses of human beings. And that is exactly why they seek to devour their targets in order to find a source of completion so that they don't find any threat or danger to them, especially to their targets. And this is pretty much exactly what they're talking about with this scene, where Konohamaru, or rather Matsuri, is actually talking about the fact that because of the fact that you are someone that I know, right, and you are someone that I always think about, and I think you are the reason why I am going to get cooked, and that is exactly why I need to devour you. And obviously that's for Matsuri's side. We can't tell what the other Shinji clone side of devouring them, but this is what you would assume is like for each of the Shinji clones. This is exactly their goal, right, in different ways. And I think the narrative in this standoff is absolutely amazing. And we're not even getting to the best part of the chapter yet, which is coming soon. But I am already liking this dialogue already. And just when we thought things were about to go insane, we actually swap over to the fight with Team 7, Yodo and Araya versus Ryu, where in the previous chapter, things were not going well. Obviously, you know, the previous chapter, we were seeing this fight where, okay, now we're finally starting to see what the Hidden Sand can do. We saw the lodestone, the lodestone technique imbued onto the sword that Shinki had given to the Hidden Sand team, and obviously the sword just, you know, ended up falling into the wrong hands. And now you're in this position where Ryu, right now in chapter 20, absolutely cooking the team. We see him taking out Rhea, we see him taking out Yodo, and then it gets to a point where even Mitsuki is struggling. We see Mitsuki trying to cover for the Hidden Sand, and it just becomes this point, to the point where Ryu cooks Mitsuki out of Sage Mode. Literally hits him with an attack and he's kicked out of Sage Mode. And Yeah, we're looking at this and we're like, okay, yeah, no, these guys are gonna get cooked. Obviously, with the preview that we are seeing, the two previews, I didn't really think anything crazy was gonna go on. This was the preview page, but like I said, I'm looking at this, and this is something that I talked about in my previous video, asking the question of whether Boruto and Kawaki may pull up to the fight simply because things are going for the worst on both sides. But now we see Ryu demanding and reasoning with himself. He's like, you know what? Maybe I should hold you guys hostage. Tell me where Boruto is, and I'll spare your lives. Obviously, it kind of is a trap here. Sarada brings that out. And we're basically in this struggle, right? Where these guys are kind of struggling and just like they're deciding to see if we're making the right decision or the wrong decision. Guys, this is a trap. Guys, don't fall for this. And the tension has never been this high. Because in my head, as I'm reading this chapter, I'm like, yo, what is Ryu actually going to do? And in my head, I'm like, I think Ryu's gonna try and off one of these guys. And we see basically Yodo trying to reason with these guys and saying, hey, spare my life, because I can use sensory ninjutsu and I can try and sense him. And then we just see Ryu absolutely stab through her torso, which is absolutely insane. I think she might actually die, but I'll talk about later at the end of the video. But we're looking at this moment, and the whole moment that led to this, again, is the beautiful narrative that I enjoyed about this chapter, where essentially, because Ryu is asking them to reveal the information about Boruto, Sarada thinks back to the conversation and that small fight that she had with Sumire, where she's thinking about what Sumire was saying, that, hey, you want to know where Boruto is all the time. Don't you consider the fact that him being away from us and the fact that we don't know where he is, don't you think that's a blessing? And don't you think we should keep it that way? Because it protects him and it also protects us. And back then, when a lot of people were hitting on Sumire and saying, oh, Sumire is just hating, she's being a simp. Obviously, Sarada, she's trying to help and all that. But now that I look back at this whole argument, and even Sarada's thinking about it and saying, you know what? I think Sumire is cooking. I agree with Sarada. I think Sumire is cooking right now. I do think she has a point. Right, obviously that whole conversation is another video for another day, but I think that was just like really good narrative, which is something that Sarada had been thinking about ever since the beginning of this fight. And we essentially see this, this little argument between Yodo and Sarada, where Yodo is saying, yo, why don't you just tell this nigga where Boruto is? Because in their eyes, they see Boruto as a rogue ninja. Remember, the Omnipotence swapped everything for everyone, right? And Sarada and Sumire and just a few people out there are the only people who know that Boruto is actually not the person who killed Naruto and Hinata, and we know they're both not dead. So you just see this amazing narrative, and it resembles Naruto a lot, because in Shippuden, you have Naruto who said that he couldn't become Hokage without even saving a friend. And you see the same narrative here with Sarada, where she's saying, hey, I'm not going to sell out a fellow comrade of the village, regardless of whether he's a rogue ninja or not. Obviously, Sarada knows he's not evil, right? He's not a bad guy. And this is so peak, because it's like, this is the path to becoming Hokage. This is what I love about the narrative. And I just enjoyed this so much. And so we switch back to Konohamaru, where just when we think things are going to go for the worst for Konohamaru, he's literally screaming in pain, in agony and despair. And you just see Konohamaru pull off one of the most amazing moments. I think this is probably Konohamaru's best moment in the manga. I don't care what anyone says. This might be a hot take. This might be one of his best moments ever since his fight with Pain and Shippuden. And I know that's crazy, because in Boruto, he never really cooks. Every time he's faced up against opponents that are just way too strong for him. And this time we actually see Konohamaru standing up and actually doing what Shikamaru said. Remember in the previous chapters, Shikamaru, the whole point of this mission was basically telling these people, yo, we need you to go there, meet these Shinju clones, try and become friends with them. And then at the last moment, when they think they are going to get you, the last moment when everything is going peacefully for them and everything seems to be going nice and cool, betray them. And that is what we see here, as Konohamaru essentially tells her, yo, I need you to hold my hands. And again, the narrative of this chapter, this is why, like, if you just look beyond the fight scenes and just everything that's happening, if you look at the narrative between Konohamaru and Matsuri, we see Konohamaru yelling at Matsuri, and he's like, Matsuri, what the fuck are you doing? And you see Matsuri crying. And this is exactly what I was going to talk about when I said I was going to talk about this at the end of the video, because we see Jura crying. And I think this is the first time. I don't think I've ever seen Juro cry. And he talks about the same thing I was talking at the beginning of the video. I was saying, you know, the Shinju clones, they know that these people that they're looking for, they are literally, this is the reason why they're trying to devour them. Because for someone like Matsuri, she describes Konohamaru to be a threat. Because every time he thinks about him, it becomes a whole different story. And that's exactly why she needs to devour him. And you see Juro say the exact same thing I was talking about when I was saying Juro said, and Juro, this is the whole ideology between the Shinju clones, where they're saying that, hey, we think that love and caring for people is going to be a weakness to us. And that is the weakness of human beings. They would die for someone that they care for, or they would do anything to protect someone instead of protecting themselves. And it ends up becoming a weakness for them. And you see this into display where Matsuri is the first Shinju clone to actually have affection and starts crying and wondering, what is this? These are tears I've never experienced. Oh, these are tears. Okay, that's crazy. And then all of a sudden, that exploits the weakness of the human beings, and it's being portrayed by the Shinju clones. And you see Konohamaru do a full 180, hits her with a twin giant Rasengan barrage. And I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. This is peak fiction. This is peak fiction. I cannot lie. Kishimoto and Ikimoto, they be cooking in the studio. They be chefing up some good food, because this is probably, in my opinion, my favorite chapter. And I know I'm being biased, right? Because after this scene, we move back to the team where they are still struggling against Ryu. And after Ryu stabs Yodo, it becomes a whole thing where everyone is panicking now. Everyone is like, oh, damn, you know. And I think in this position, unlike Inojin, where, you know, I remember making this video and saying, I think Inojin's gonna die because the nigga just got stabbed. And you just see, you know, obviously you see Himawari pulling up and just like healing his torso right then and there. I don't think Yodo's gonna survive. I do hope somehow she lives. I don't know, but like a lot of people have been complaining about how a lot of characters don't die in the show. And like, you know, to me, I don't see it as a problem, because that's not really the whole point of the show. But at the same time, I do think it is gonna kind of be sad how, you know, Areya's whole purpose was just like, you know, becoming a shinobi and trying to get stronger so that he can protect, you know, obviously the one he loves, which obviously is Yodo. So just to see Yodo die, I think that's kind of crazy. But I think this was heavily needed, because in the next few pages, my glorious queen, my favorite character in the show, by the way, and that's why I'm saying this is my favorite chapter, because I've been waiting for this day. And I don't care if anyone calls me a glazer. I have been waiting for this day every day. And I kid you not, guys, I was making a video. I will show you the thumbnail. I even made an audio clip. I might even play it if I want to. I made an audio clip. I prepared everything, thumbnails, all that shit. I hadn't even started editing the video yet. And I kid you not, when the spoilers came out, I hear that Sarada has unleashed her Mangekyo Sharingan. I'm like, dog. I was literally in the works of making a video talking about when Sarada's Mangekyo Sharingan could pull up. And I was thinking about whether it could potentially pull up in this fight or in another, you know, scenario. And I'm like, okay, what are we doing? I had to scrap the entire video because obviously it just makes no sense. My answers have already been fulfilled. And I have never been happy, because the whole narrative again, you know, not Areya, but Yodo's basically talking about, hey, it's okay to use your powers to protect people, man. It's okay to go all out for us. And it doesn't even have to be us in general. You know, the one you think about all the time. And in her head, she thinks about Boruto. And now in the next pages, we see Sarada. You know, obviously she's in a bind because of Ryu's Iron Sand. And we just see the Iron Sand dissipate right then and there. And finally, we see, again, the Mangekyo Sharingan. What an amazing moment, honestly. And that is the last page of the chapter. I look at that and I'm like, okay, this is insane. Now, a few things to notice from the last few pages here, because I know a lot of people are going to analyze what they think Sarada's Mangekyo powers might be. I might consider making a video about this, but I don't want to make the video too long. However, I think I want to just, because it's an in-depth review, right? I want to look at the last few pages here where when Sarada is binded to the Iron Sand here, And all of a sudden, when she activates her Mangekyo Sharingan, we can see the Iron Sand dissipating. Even Mitsuki comments about this. He's saying, damn, the Iron Sand just left her. She's no longer in a bind. What's going on? He looks over there, and right next to Ryu, we see sort of like a black hole where the Iron Sand is basically being attracted to that black hole. And so I think a lot of people are going to speculate, even I'm speculating, okay, so her Mangekyo Sharingan has something to do with the powers of black holes, right? I think that's pretty much like what you would assume is going to be. Now, I'm not just going to say, I know the fellow YouTubers out there, shout out to them. I ain't bashing them or anything, but I know they're going to start, going on mythology and, like, oh, the history behind it. Here on my channel, I ain't reading all that, but I do think a lot of the other channels are going to go in depth, and I think I might want to try and do the same thing, which is why I don't want to keep the video too long. However, you can definitely let me know what you think her ability is going to be. And with that said, you can also let me know what you guys think about this chapter, because I ain't gonna lie, this chapter was absolutely amazing. 10 out of 10 for me. Absolutely S tier plus chapter. One of the top 10 chapters in the manga so far. I think, not only that, it's very crazy because the fight hasn't ended. We're going to be receiving the next chapter and the fight is going to continue. So it's only going to get better from here because they haven't taken on the Shinji clones. So I don't know if they're going to win, because who knows? Maybe the Shinji clones might have something up their sleeve. You also look at Matsuri. She hasn't really fought that much. She only just held Konohamaru to a bind and Konohamaru broke from it. So we don't know if, we'll see how it goes. But I'm pretty hyped for this chapter and I just cannot wait. But with that said, it's been a video for me, the fruit. If you hit that subscribe button, definitely hit that like button. And I hope you enjoyed the video. With that said, it's been a video for me, the fruit. And I will see you in another. Peace.